Hello everyone. How do you do? And welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 22nd of April 2024. It's Gary here again. Oh dear, I don't know. Is this the second or the third week in a row where I have to start with a bit of an oh my god, what is even happening? Now, the little bit of a caveat here is obviously we're coming off the back of a fairly decent performance and result in the Scottish Cup semi-final, but that doesn't take away the heartbreak of what we've managed to do to ourselves in the league. So I'm kind of compounding what I had talked about, certainly last week for sure, and we're in a situation now where we have played Motherwell at home, Ross County Dundee away, and we have amassed 1 point from those three games, I should say, and that's 5 points from 15. 5 points from 15. That just is not league championship winning form, I'm afraid, and I'm really not sure what we do to turn it around in the league. Obviously, we put ourselves at a bit of a disadvantage now in terms of league position, league points, and goals. Of course, if you don't win your games, or if you draw your games, you don't get more goals. Obviously, you're going to be behind in the goal difference as well. I have to admit, quite honestly, folks, Wednesday to Friday was a very low time for all of us. I'm fairly sure, as Rangers fans. But for me personally, I just started to pick up and feel a bit better on Saturday past there, and started to get a wee bit upbeat for some reason, thinking, you know what, I think maybe it's hope that the worst of it is behind us and we still are in with a chance. It's not completely done. And one of the things I said to a few folks that I was chatting to over the last couple of days is more likely, is that we're comparing the mob from the East End to previous mobs from the East End who just won every game, who just didn't lose, who just didn't look like losing, who were just so dominant. And that's not this team. And you've seen what happened, from them with a team that they usually just banjo every single time. They were very lucky to get through on penalties on Saturday to the Scottish Cup final. So maybe that helped me get a wee bit upbeat. They're not the great shakes, and we do have a mini league starting here, and if we were able to win all of our games and maybe claw some goals back, we could see what happens when we put them under pressure, because we've never really done that, and I'm fairly sure I talked about that over the last couple of shows as well. But we have factually made things very, very difficult for ourselves in the league, and we just cliche central here, cliche alert. We just have to take one game at a time, starting with this weekend, of course, and see what transpires. Is 6 games out of 6 out with the realms of possibility for us to bring home that treble? I don't know. A month ago I would have said I can see us doing the whole thing. Right now, who knows what we're going to get. But as I said yesterday, if that bodes anything, then there's some positive signs to come, and maybe the lessons have been learned and we've got that out of our system just in time. Who knows? I'd like to start and been a wee bit more, I don't know if this is positive or negative. I'm going to say this is positive, and it's another what Gaz got wrong last week, and at this time it's a sincere apology to Gaynor Campbell, and this is twice I've done it to Gaynor. Gaynor got me a ticket for Seville in 2022, and I forgot to thank her personally and on the pod. And last week I think I mentioned everybody that lives in Southern California, and for some reason I didn't mention Gaynor's name, and I tried to kind of mention just the guys and then their families and things like that. Gaynor was the one that organised the whole thing literally from start to finish, through to the party, through to the arrangements, through to supporting us with logistics of the location and the local area and such. And she didn't get the mention, so that's 100% on me. I do apologise, Gaynor. Do you know what I actually did when I got notification that I had inadvertently let that go? Apple Podcasts now does transcripts of all of your podcasts. So if you were ever in a position where you weren't able to hear the podcast or listen to the podcast, you wanted to read it, you could go into the app for Apple Podcasts, you could go into the notes, and then you'd be able to see everything. And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I went into that particular section, And I was like, no, her name isn't there. Wow. So my apologies, Gaynor. Gaynor was the absolute queen of organisation, got the whole thing organised, and it went off to a T. She didn't organise the weather very well, to be perfectly honest, but that's probably a wee bit unfair on her to put all of that on her, but she did a great job. It was a fantastic weekend, and I am fully recovered. I don't know about everyone else. All right, on to the games segment. 2 games this past week, of course, and the first one, a mega downer, and that was the 0-0 draw at Dundee, which just compounded the previous 3-2 defeat at Ross County, and it was just awful. As I mentioned earlier, we've taken 5 points from 15, and you know what, I did say last week I'm not buying into that. If we win all of our games between now and then, we'll win it. But I'm the eternal optimist. I got a little bit kind of ragdolled for that, for that on the NARSA communications list last week, but that's just the way I am, and that's the way I like to be. And maybe, just maybe, that point, you never know what that point will do for us come the end of the season. But anyway, back to the game. I think we kind of got what we expected, didn't we? You know, it wasn't great. And then when I listened to Philippe Clement, actually after yesterday's Hearts victory, you know, in the semi-final, and he says I was very angry. It was completely unacceptable against Ross County, and then it was better against Dundee. In the moment, quite honestly, it didn't feel better against Dundee, because it looked like we were kind of clueless. We were kind of running around. We were certainly applying ourselves a little bit more. But he hit the nail on the head for me yesterday when he said we just got too anxious and we tried to rush it against Dundee, and that's exactly what happened, because every single time we got the ball, whether it was in defence, mostly from defence, but sometimes in midfield, we were trying to play that quick ball so quickly through. And I don't know what the pitch was like. Obviously all the hassles that they've had trying to get that game on, first and foremost, has maybe contributed in some way, but the pitch wasn't very conducive to the long ball. It was skipping away. It seemed like the team were, you know, certainly the forwards weren't overly expecting what that looked like at the same time. So in the moment of watching it, I was watching it in a dermatologist waiting room, and then in the actual doctor's office as well, because they kept us waiting a wee bit, and Leo had an accident snowboarding, and I was worried he was going to get a scar on his face, so I took him to a dermatologist. That was the only time I could get. So I kind of half listened to the dermatologist guy, but you know, we got what we needed to get. He's okay, if anyone is concerned about that. But I don't think we need to say much more about the game than has already been said. It was disappointing. We obviously wanted to win the game. I think if we had played the game the first or second times, we would have won the game, and we would be in a much different position. But it certainly, I mean, that timing comes at the same time as our kind of skid, and maybe it affected the team and the club a wee bit more than we would think. You would hope it wouldn't, but you know, you don't get to choose these things. Sometimes things inadvertently or subconsciously hit you when you're least kind of expecting. But I think overall that run of games, you know, the 5 points from 15, if we take the Hearts game out of it, it's just the surprise. I think it's a surprise, and not every surprise is a good surprise, as you'll know. And it's just been such a catastrophic fall from normalcy is probably the best word. Like, because our normalcy for since Philippe Clement came in has been, you know, we apply ourselves, we work harder than the opposition, we are constantly trying to move forward, and we typically get the results that we're looking for, out with the Old Firm game, of course. So it's just one of these things. But is it better to do that with half a dozen games to go, or better to do that, you know, at the end and really just collapse at the end? I guess we'll find out at the end of the season, won't we? And you'll probably know by now that Dundee were fined £186,000 by the SPFL for their role in not looking after at the base level of operating as a football club in the Premier League, but with £120,000 of that suspended until the end of next season, and that would only be payable if there's other problems, and you would imagine there's going to be other problems. This is where it's unfair, because what they decided to do was to cross their fingers and their toes and everything else, and hope that this would be okay this season, and invest the money they should have invested in the pitch and the drainage in the squad. And then in the squad, they've now got into the top six. I have no idea how much of a financial difference it is between the bottom six and the top six, but you're going to be playing Rangers and the team from the East, you know, once more, and that's going to be more revenue. It's going to be on the TV. It's going to be, you know, more money through the gates, and you know, probably people buying stuff in the stadium and such like that. So who comes out ahead here? Like, and basically a £66,000 pound fine. Have they made that money back up by qualifying for the top six, and then they're just going to do what they do for the remainder of the time? It seems something stinks, I guess, is probably what I'm saying there, and I don't like it at all. I'm very, very disappointed in Dundee, and I'm sure they're devastated by that at the same time. But it's just a tin pot club within a tin pot city, to be perfectly honest with you. So we'll see what happens as we go forward. But they did not shine our league in a good light worldwide, and they've fallen afoul of Sky. Sky will be extremely upset with them as well, as I mentioned before. Anyway, positives. We got a point. It didn't feel greatly positive at the time, but we got a point. We kept a clean sheet, didn't lose a goal, of course, and I quite honestly, watching the game, I didn't actually feel like we were going to lose a goal, and the problem was it didn't look like we were going to score either, because of the stuff that Philippe Clement had mentioned earlier, which I completely agree with. So as I say, just to reiterate again, who knows how valuable that point might be come the end of the season. It might be the difference between winning and finishing second in the league. So you never know. The negatives, we lost 2 points, of course, that's the first one. But we all saw what we saw. It wasn't great. It wasn't as bad as Ross County, but it just wasn't great. And another thing, and I don't know if this is a positive or a negative, but it started to kind of just pique my interest, I guess is probably the best way to say it. But we didn't get another booking again. And that's been almost like for a month we haven't had players booked, and that's odd. In games that we're trying, not that again, once again, not that I'm saying we should go kick the opponent to in some way try and instill some sort of belief or change the game or have the tone or the kind of the atmosphere of the game change in any way, but it just feels like bookings correlate with how we play, bookings correlate with how much we try. And maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. But no bookings again in this one, and the game kind of petered out. In terms of stats, we had 66% possession, 11 shots on goal with 5 on target, versus Dundee 3 shots on goal with 1 on target. Don Robertson did all right in the game in terms of the referee watch. I don't recall him being super annoying or anything like that, so he'll get the standard 7 out of 10, and we'll just move on from there and talk about more positive things, which was the Scottish Cup semi-final 2-0 win over Hearts at Hampden yesterday, courtesy of a double from CD9. Maybe he's firing at the exact right time, and he's a much maligned player, we all know that, and certainly there's a lot of chatter on the NARSA WhatsApp group about him. That's his 18th and 19th goals of the season, folks. And when was the last time we had a regular 20 goal a season striker? They're not as common certainly for us as we would like them to be. So credit to him for doing that, and he's still got half a dozen games of the season to go to hopefully get us into the 20s and maybe pick up another couple of trophies at the same time. I thought it was quite an entertaining game. We had some challenges here, which I'll talk about in terms of the RTV update when we get there. But it was an entertaining game. Hearts games typically always are, even when Hearts aren't doing that great. But they came and they had a go. The pitch looked in fantastic condition, I have to say. And we got a bit of a game of football. Some parts of the game were absolutely closer to what we know we can do, how we know we can play, and the impact we know that we can have. And some parts of it weren't so much. There was a lot of times the ball just didn't break for us. There's some very, very poor and slack passing, in terms of colour blindness, back to what my dad used to say. And obviously the big news before the game was I don't know if it's a surprise, I was semi-surprised that Connor Goldson was dropped and arrested, and Clement came out and said that he had noticed he was getting tired and he was hoping to do that for the Dundee game, but Liam Balogun had got ill, so that wasn't to be at that point. And it just seemed that we managed to get out of our funk. We managed to play some football, we managed to get the fans behind us. The fans were brilliant the whole day, and just get ourselves to an opportunity to play some football, create some chances. Should have scored way more goals, of course. That's the story of the season, I think. Story of every season, it feels like, to be dead honest. But again, not to say everything was rosy, but it did seem that some of our energy was back. And this is not a dig at Connor Goldson whatsoever. I'm a Connor Goldson fan, but we did seem to be more solid at the back. The panic, I mentioned it for the Dundee game earlier there, that panic where you're like, they're going to score, they're going to score. I certainly felt that against Ross County. I didn't feel it against Dundee, and I didn't feel it against Hearts. Even at the end when they had that breakaway and that fantastic, brilliant save by Jack Butland to keep it at 2-0. I just didn't have that I don't know, that gut-wrenching butterflies in the stomach sort of thing. I didn't have that, so that's a good thing. And as I said, like we could and should score more goals. It's not for the want of trying, I understand that, but man oh man, when was the last time we truly killed off a game? Probably the last time we played Hearts, I think, was the last time I remember anyway. Anyway, positives, the result, of course, a clean sheet again, and an Old Firm Scottish Cup final to look forward to for the first time, I'm led to believe, in 22 years, I think it is. And that's going to be a very good occasion. The guy that owns the bar that we watched the games in, Pin Bar down in Calgary, he came in towards the end of the game and I said, see that scoreline? That means we need to apply for an early bar licence on the 25th of May, because we are going to go for it big time, and hopefully we'll get that. So I need to confirm that in writing with him, and then we'll get that organised. But it's going to be party time. Another positive, as I mentioned briefly, the energy, the endeavour, and just the effort, I think, was 100 times better than we had seen, certainly Ross County, and to a slightly lesser degree for Dundee, and it gives me hope that maybe just maybe this squad isn't done for this season. Another positive, of course, 2 goals for Cyril Dessers, good for him for doing that, and some game time for players who haven't played much recently. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Jack Butland's save, that's a game changer, because then we've got a very nervy, what would that have been, 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 5 or 6 minutes towards the end, but he did what Jack Butland does, and fantastic. Todd Cantwell was excellent, Dessers was great, Balogun was good. I think everybody, I don't think there was anybody that had like what you could say, a bad game, and it was just good to see the team kind of gelling and getting together. Also good to see Nico Raskin get some game time. I thought he was bombed out, quite honestly, and Clement did talk about him, I believe was it in the press conference before the game, where he was saying there's just better players ahead of him. That's just the way that things that's the way things go sometimes at big football clubs. But great to see him get on towards the end. And also Ross McCausland. I was actually going to mention Ross McCausland at the I think last week on the pod last week, to say, I mean, we see him on the bench every week, but what happened to him? He just fell off the side of the earth, and maybe he wasn't over that injury that he got in was it the European game or the Celtic game? I can't remember exactly what game it was now, but good to see him get on and get some game time. I thought he played pretty well as well. So yeah, that's some really good positives there. Negatives, I'm not really going to say too much in the way of negatives for this. I mean, this was our first win in April, and here we're sitting at the 22nd, so that's not very often we get the chance to see that. Abdallah Sima's injury is not good news. Of course, I haven't heard anything right now. It's 10:15 a.m. and I haven't heard anything about his injury. Hopefully it's nothing too bad. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any of it because we were blocked out by RTV at the time. And from a negatives perspective, I have to mention Mario Silva's what do you call it? His miss at the end there, when the ball is crossed over, and what did he do? Like, what literally was it? I was joking with some guys afterwards saying, in the league I play in here in Calgary, we're all old farts, and I see that quite a lot. And it's just because we're old and our brain doesn't function the way that it used to function, and maybe we would have done something different. But that looked like a tap in, and then did he think he was going to get was it a tiny bit behind him? Possibly. Did he think he was going to get hit? Was there a phantom sniper out there? I don't know what he did, but man oh man, that was weird, I think. And then I thought he did okay when he came on. He's been getting a wee bit of stick recently, and we don't want to give anybody stick. We just want players to perform the way that we know they can perform. But that was a humdinger, let's just say that, and swiftly move on. We had 62% possession, 12 shots on goal, 5 on target. They had 7 shots on goal with 3 on target. And lo and behold, I don't know if this is a hallelujah moment or not, but we did indeed have a couple of bookings for John Suter, who had a very rough start to the second half, didn't they? And Nico Raskin, he got himself booked at the end. I can't even remember what Raskin's booking was for, quite honestly. But yeah, a couple of yellow cards. So maybe that, I don't know if that's a sign, as I say. It's just something that's, when you get to stressful situations, you try to kind of clutch at straws and figure out all the details of exactly what's going on, so that you know exactly, or you've got a rough idea where you can maybe concentrate some efforts and things. So a couple of bookings there. Steve McLean, I think he seemed to be a wee bit inconsistent for both teams in terms of refereeing. So okay, I think he did all right. So he'll get the standard 7 out of 10. I don't really want to talk about referees too much this week. And we have one massive game this weekend, and it's all league business from here until the Scottish Cup final. So, and we're back to one game a week for the next couple of weeks, which is maybe going to be beneficial for us in terms of recovery, in terms of tactical practice and such. And it's in the most beautiful town in Europe. That's going to be against St Mirren in Paisley, of course, and that's on Sunday the 28th of April with a 7:30am Eastern Standard Time kickoff. That's 12:30pm in the UK. St Mirren, this is not, I don't hold any authority whatsoever, so nobody can accuse me of being a jinx or anything like that, but they have not scored a goal against us in league play this season. We had a 1-0 win there at the end of January, and it was CD9 that scored that day. A 2-0 win at Ibrox early December with Sima getting both of those goals, and then a 3-0 win there in early October. That was 2 from Tav and 1 from Sima. We haven't really enjoyed the most entertaining of games against St Mirren this season, and I don't care if Sunday's entertaining or not, just to be super crystal clear on that. As long as we have a result that's like any one of the three that I just mentioned, 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, I will take it all day long, folks. For RTV, I mentioned this a wee bit earlier, we had some problems almost widespread across the entire continent for us, which turned out to be the broadcast partner that RTV has called Stream AMG. There was issues and challenges with them. The good thing about this time, which was different to the last time we had challenges like this, was that RTV were very proactive. As soon as they knew there was an issue, it was about half an hour before the game, David Melvin had messaged me to say, look, something's going down, we're working on trying to fix it. And then we had good dialogue as we were going forward, and hopefully that helped decrease the temperature levels a wee bit. It was frustrating, we didn't have it in Calgary, so I'm just sitting in the media room in Pin Bar, constantly refreshing, logging out, logging in, constantly refreshing, and it was about 20 minutes or so. So we've lodged a formal request for information and an intent that we want a credit for that game. That's not good enough, not in a game of that magnitude. And it was nothing to do with Premier Sports, it was nothing to do with RTV, although RTV is the face of the technology that's being provided to us, but it was a partner issue, and as soon as they get the report and what exactly happened, RTV will let us know, I'll let everyone else know, and then I'll keep you posted on what happens and transpires with the credit that we have requested. We can put up with this once or twice, but that's twice. We could put up with it once or twice, but that's twice. We could put up with it as an isolated incident, I guess is the best way to say it, but that's twice. And big games like that, after a very heavy couple of weeks, it's just not good enough, and David knows that. David feels the exact same, by the way, so hopefully we'll make some progress on that. On a shout out section for this week, I've got a couple actually. I've got a few now that I say that, and the first one came from Willie Smith from Niagara True Blues. And I'll just read this verbatim, if you don't mind. I was wondering if you could put this on your weekly podcast. One of our long-time members has just passed away this week on Tuesday night. His name was Rab Ferguson. Rab was also a founding member of our club and a regular attendee at the Niagara True Blues. He was also well known in North America in the Boilermakers Union. Him and his sidekick Rab Kerr, I know Rab well, they were known as the Two Rabs. The other Rab is also a founding member. Anyway, he will be sorely missed by all who knew him, and he also was a regular at a lot of the NARSA conventions. I would probably recognise him, and I would be grateful if you could mention this in your weekly podcast. We also had a long-time member over to watch the Rangers Celtic game at Ibrox and took ill after the game and was rushed to hospital in Glasgow. He is now out but advised not to travel back to Canada, and his name is Tommy Brotherston. And no, Tommy, we got him the tickets. So Willie and the team at Niagara are waiting for an update. Tommy actually reached out to me last week to tell me that he was in hospital. This was they were desperate to get tickets because this was, probably or possibly one of the last times he was going to be heading over to be able to see Rangers and Celtic. We managed to get him the tickets. He was very thankful, very grateful. But I didn't know this at the time. He had travelled to Scotland against doctor's advice, and then lo and behold, has been rushed into hospital. He was healthy enough to be messaging, so I hope that's a good sign. And if Willie says that he's already out of hospital now, that's great news, and hopefully Tommy can get himself back over to Niagara and get to continue his recovery over the next wee while. So so that's from Willie Smith, from who's the president of Niagara True Blues, and of course Rab Ferguson is the dad of Rob Ferguson, who I've dealt with a number of years, and does a lot of great work on behalf of Niagara True Blues as well. So of course, on behalf of NARSA, I'd like to pass on our sincere condolences for that, and our best wishes to Tommy as he continues his recovery to get back to Canada. I'd like to lighten it up a wee bit now by wishing a belated happy birthday to our very own Jimmy Hutchins from the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary, who was 72 this past Saturday. And if anybody here is listening who is on the NARSA WhatsApp chat, and basically anyone can join, you're welcome to join us if you want. I don't know what planet he was on this morning. His grammar and his English and his spelling were pretty disappointing, Jimmy, to be perfectly honest. You have to be better than that. And he gave everyone a wee lecture this morning, I think, about what was happening, and then he just put 2 or 3 conversations into the one conversation. So I don't know what he was talking about. I think he was talking about RTV. I think I seen a 4-3-3 in there. Give him a break. He's 72. He is what he is. The good thing is that when he was leaving the pub yesterday, as a 72-year-old, he put his wee white baseball cap on and just strolled out the door, just pleased as punch with the way he looks. Good for you, Jimmy. I'm glad for you, my friend. But in all seriousness, a very, very belated happy birthday, my friend. And I don't know if this is a shout out or not, because I try and make the shout outs as possible, as positive as possible. Of course, when there's not good news like Rab Ferguson's news, that's obviously not possible. But I did note with interest, I watched mostly the second half of the El Clasico, and I have to say, anytime I've ever watched El Clasico, it's never really been that entertaining. I don't know if it's just Spanish football and the type of football they play, but since Jude Bellingham has went there, and since Ancelotti's went back, it seems to be better. Real Madrid are more entertaining now anyway. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Barcelona for being the Celtic of Spain. They have just came out in full-blown victim mode, haven't they? I mean, they basically tried to lynch the referee last week in the Champions League quarter-final for costing them the game at home to PSG with a red card, around about, what was that, midway through the first half. And they were still 1-0 up. They were still ahead in the tie. And it's not the referee's fault they lost 4 goals. I don't know. And now they're demanding a replay of El Clasico for a supposed phantom goal. Now, the caveat to this is I did not see this. I must have missed that. I believe that was also in the first half as well. But their president, Juan Laporta, and Xavi both came out afterwards, and I think it was Xavi said, "My feeling today is one of maximum injustice. Goes without saying, everyone saw it. My feeling is today's match was not fair." Who does that sound like? Honestly, who does it sound like? It sounds like those from the East End, doesn't it? Every single time a throw-in goes against them, they're like, conspiracy, it's the Masons, it's the establishment, it's oh my God. So congratulations to Barcelona for now being my least favourite team in Spain. Back to business. The women's team had a rough week last week as well, didn't they? They had a 1-0 midweek defeat against Hearts, and then Hearts go and play Celtic on the weekend and get beat 5-0. So I think I seen a headline saying it was a historic win, so I don't know if Hearts have never beat Rangers, the women's team, before, although they did recover somewhat with a 3-1 win with a couple of late goals actually though yesterday over Partick. So they're still 2 points behind that mob, and they have a big game this week in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, the Women's Scottish Cup against Celtic. So that's going to be a big one. That's going to tell whether the treble is on or not. And then the remaining games, let's assume they're going to get to the Scottish Cup final and don't know who they're going to be playing. The remaining league games are going to be Hearts, Celtic, Glasgow City, Hibs, and they finish off with Partick. So that's Hearts, revenge. Celtic, you need to beat them. You just simply need to beat them. It's, it's a fact. They're 2 points behind. Glasgow City, hopefully they've got the win knocked out themselves, and another result like the one they had the week before last would be great, and then they should be able to take the points against Hibs and Partick. So the treble might still be on for both of the teams. It was a lot more. There was a lot more of a positive outlook, I guess is probably the best way to say it, a few weeks ago for both teams, but it's still on, and I guess that's probably all we could ask for at this particular time. Another shout out for Toronto Midtown's Cultural Night on the 19th of July, and that's at 7 p.m. in the Gatherings Resto Bar. And you can just email tmrsc1998@outlook.com to reserve your spot. Again, there's no cover charge, but you want to get your table reserved so you don't miss out when you go down there. On a convention update, I can confirm officially it's 416 days and 59 weeks until we descend upon Kissimmee in Osceola County in Florida. And I know you can't see me, but I'm pumping my fist right now. I am into this, and of course that's on June the 12th to the 16th, 2025. As you know, we have our first major confirmation, which is David Edgar as our MC, and we have been banding around some options for entertainment, specifically for the Friday night. We are working with our contacts at the hotel now. I've got a contact for the AV folks, which is called Pinnacle something, I can't remember, and we have a kind of interim contact that's helping us with the logistics of getting the hotel rooms out for booking. What I did discover last week was that they're having a system upgrade right now at the hotel, so they're essentially prioritising room bookings for events that are closer in time to ours. They're kind of relaxed about ours because it's over a year. I'm still impressing upon them. We really want to get this out as quickly as we possibly can, but it's probably going to be a couple of weeks. What I did say to them was, do the upgrade, use other people as your test bed to get the wrinkles all ironed out, and then we will happily use the system after that. So we are working on a formal joint communication that will formally announce the hotel location. I'm actually going to tell you what the hotel location is next week on next week's pod, and the formal communication that's coming out between ourselves, Rangers and Experience Kissimmee, is going to come out on the 30th of April, which is a week tomorrow, a week on Tuesday. Yep. So we are working on some near-term action items, specifically with the club, and just kind of keeping that dialogue going. So we're getting there, getting a wee bit of momentum. If it was a steam train, we would the wheels would be slowly moving to get ourselves a wee bit of forward momentum, and we'll take it from there. But as I say, we'll get an announcement next week on the hotel. We'll get the room bookings out, hopefully the week after that, maybe the week after that, and then we'll see what happens from there. In other business, we did have a NARSA executive meeting last week. It was great to see that some of the folks must have had an ugly night because they didn't put their cameras on, but most did. And we talked about, of course, NARSA 2025. We talked around the logistics for final collection of the payments for RTV for the season and what that's going to look like, and our payment structure of getting that over to Rangers. We talked about our communications of what we're doing in terms of the pod, in terms of our ongoing communications, in terms of getting the website prepared for the convention announcement, and in terms of the newsletter and such, and some other bits and pieces, but we kind of focused the latter part of it on our preparation for the AGM. And every single club was notified last week that our AGM is going to be on June the 15th. So it's going to be a wee bit after the season's done, but it's kind of coinciding with some Euro games as well. So hopefully, maybe folks would be getting together in your club to watch it, and you can get together and attend the AGM. It's very, very important you attend the AGM. And by the way, at this AGM, we would be looking for anyone willing to put up their hand to host the NARSA convention in 2026. No pressure if you're not prepared or willing to do that, but that's when we would be looking for that too. So yeah, some action items out of that, and I'll keep you posted on what that looks like as we go forward. Bit of a longer one this week, eh? That's my rant at the beginning because of what Rangers did and my what Gaz got wrong. But we're almost done here, folks. The communication section for this week, the Gers Guide, was not published by the time I started recording, so there's going to be an away days, and that's either going to be out today or tomorrow. There's going to be a loan review. The loan review wasn't up, so let's say the loan review is probably going to be Tuesday. I have no idea what's happening Wednesday or Thursday. On Friday will be the press conference for the St Mirren game. On Saturday, that is the semi-final of the Women's Scottish Cup, and that's at 12:15 p.m. UK kickoff time. And on Sunday, of course, we are at St Mirren for that as well. So best of luck to the women's team. On the CEO fans forum, no one had submitted any questions to be asked at the forum, and I ran out of time, quite honestly, folks, to get a question over there. But I did read an overview by Stevie at Four Lads as to what was discussed there, and not a lot on the overseas front because we didn't ask any questions, but we'll make sure that we get a question in for next time. On the Euro 2024 pool, as I mentioned last week, I hope I mentioned last week that we're going to be just making sure that we're not going to fall foul of any laws or anything like that in North America by putting this pool on. It's just for some fun, folks. So we don't want to, just for a bit of fun, put ourselves in any sort of legal or fiscal danger. But once we get going on that, if we get going on that, then we'll be in touch about what that looks like. And last week I did mention that we've introduced a new part to our NARSA newsletter, which is the quiz. And the quiz question from last week was, who did we sign Claudio Reyna from? And when I was asked that question, I gave the answer, and the answer was completely wrong. So obviously quizzes are not my forte, but the answer, you obviously know, the answer was Bayer Leverkusen, the new Bundesliga champions, of course, and he was on loan at Wolfsburg at the time. So we have another quiz question this week. There's going to be another quiz question every single week from this point forward. And as I mentioned last week, don't Google it. Don't cheat. If you don't know the answer, listen in, and we'll provide the answer to last week's this week, and then we'll kind of have that rolling quiz thing going on. But again, anything you'd like to see on the newsletter, please do email Lorraine, and any photographs that you take at your clubs and such, please email Lorraine, and we'll get those in there at the same time. On the David Holmes One Voice book, I'm probably about a third of the way through the book, and Graham Souness has just been sent off in his first game against Hibs, and we're kind of talking about that. So it's brilliant to have the business side of this, where David's talking about the plans and how the football is integral to the plans of the business, and then you have different people coming in and talking. Very well written book. I'm really, really enjoying it. So thanks again to Brian for procuring me a signed copy, no less. That was very kind of him to do that. And once we get that, so I think probably what I'll do, actually, now that I say this out loud, folks, is I'll reach out to Lynn, David's daughter, and probably set something up for, what would that be, maybe the second week in May, and get that interview out, and we'll get that out kind of mid-May, and that gives me a wee bit of a iron in the fire to say, right, I need to have the book finished and my questions organised by that time. So let me do that. That's an action item for me. My friends, that will do it for this week. As always, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very, very, very much for taking the time to listen. Please do share it with someone that you think might enjoy it, who needs a wee bit of cheer in their ear, so to speak. Let's assume that we are back on track, and we're going to set a statement on Sunday in the most beautiful town in the universe, and we will get back to where we belong, folks. Until next week, please do take care, and all the very best. Okay, cheerio now.